celebration of the psychedelic revival in the Philadelphia region and all over the country. Come on in. Event today is Sound Mind Institute. Sound Mind Institute is a psychedelic therapy healing center, and they've actually just this week been awarded one of the first 3 licenses or accreditations in Oregon for psilocybin therapy training. So that's a huge accomplishment, and they're expanding their reach, and we're so excited to have them here today.
Talk to me a little bit, Taylor, about Sound Mind. If you would.
Yeah, so Sound Mind is a ketamine-assisted therapy clinic and a training institute in West Philly. It's at like 46 in Spruce. And so they do, I actually just finished up their 6-month psychedelic-assisted therapy training program.
Okay.
And they also just got approved to do psilocybin training via the Oregon model. So kind of doing both as well as partnering with the community for outreach and education.
How important is psychedelic-assisted healing in terms of being able to reach people within marginalized communities who have been left behind by society, who have been, left to basically be addicted to opioids, SSRIs, and how important is it to bring psychedelic-assisted healing into these communities?
It is so important, and I think that like in these marginalized communities, they're the highest users of the healthcare system. They have the highest rates of, adverse childhood events, of mental illnesses, of addiction, and so the exact indications that we're seeing psychedelics being used for are in the highest rates in these communities. And so I think in terms of, the way that psychedelics being rolled out, it needs to definitely be rolled out in a way that is accessible from a price point wise, but also in a trauma-informed kind of lens, just knowing that a lot of these communities have been victims of all kinds of trauma from the research institutions themselves. So it's, and then to that point, we definitely need therapists of all different backgrounds, specific training and ongoing education for practitioners to learn how to kind of partner with people of all different backgrounds and to really ultimately, with anyone, but especially for these really vulnerable communities that have kind of been shoved off by society, to help them feel really safe and secure to unpack, just all that's accumulated.
We're here today with Decriminalize Philly and Balanced Veterans Network. Those are our 2 beneficiaries for the event. All the ticket sales are going to go to 2 of these organizations, both very notable in the industry, both doing very important work to be able to increase access and equitability in psychedelic medicine. Balanced Veterans obviously focus on veterans' health and opening up access for alternative treatments for veterans.
So Ron, tell me a little bit about some of the work that you do with Balanced Veterans.
Yeah, I appreciate that. So Balanced Veterans is a 501c3 nonprofit, and we connect veterans and their families to all alternative therapies. And so we do that through various initiatives, and so some of that is through movement, introduction to yoga, breathing, meditation, different modalities that we can have at our disposal really at any time. And then we also help connect to some of the plant modalities like cannabis and psychedelics. And so to provide education, and then most importantly, we've got a peer-to-peer support community. So folks can plug in right away, ask questions, and really kind of work through their transition post-service with some other people as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And post-service, having that community and that support. Talk to me a little bit about how important that is.
It's vital. I did not have that, unfortunately, with my transition, and I had a really difficult transition. Was on a bunch of pharmaceuticals and was really struggling to kind of find that answer. What was next? Like, where do I go from here? And luckily I was able to be introduced to some of these modalities. But once I was able to dive into my healing journey, I was like, we need to come back, extend the hand, and help our brothers and sisters have that place, have that community to be able to have some of these conversations. This isn't stuff that we can necessarily talk about freely with the VA, and a lot of folks are under VA care, and so having this private space to be able to have those conversations, explore a little bit about what might help you, and it's been vital. It's been really important for me and our community.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And talk to me a little bit about, if you will, share, your experience, your service, which, by the way, thank you so much, for your commitment, your sacrifices. But talk to us a little bit about, your experience and how you came back, the person you were when you came back, and maybe the struggles that you experienced. Because I think it's important, when we're talking about trying to remove the stigma that's tied to psychedelic and psychedelic-assisted healing, I think it's important for people to know where people are coming from in their journey. So if you wouldn't mind sharing a little bit about that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I am so incredibly grateful for psychedelics and for sacred plant medicine. I believe that without that, I would not even have the language to understand what was going on or what was happening in my transition. And so, I think back to 5-6 years ago, not even being able to grasp or put words or even an understanding around how I felt. I joined the military at 17, and so all of the conditioning that happens in your childhood and the systems that you're in, and then to go right into the military and from 17 to 24 have that shape what it was to be a man or how to exist in society. For me, it was not super helpful. It led me to become a person that I was not really. And so to be fighting against yourself and your authenticity regularly, it creates this inner turmoil. And I was really, really struggling and tried to take my life. And I realized that through really self-reflect, because it's all on us. No one could save me. No one could be there for me to help me find what was next. But, I was able to see some glimpse of light, and luckily find some of these modalities to be able to get down to some of the root causes. I mean, that's all these tools do. Right. It's not a magic fix. It's not going to make everything better. It's going to give you some space to be able to genuinely find yourself. Right. And I knew that, as soon as I was able to feel that glimpse of self-love and really what I needed and desired, and it was completely opposite from the military culture and what you're kind of taught. It was very uncomfortable and conflicting, but I was able to start to find myself, and it's a journey. It's taken a lot of time.
What's the right dose to start at? What's the best compound to start with? When should we even start administering it? Day one, week one, year one, when?
So we're here, Colette. This is Soul Psychadelphia. I know a lot of work you've put in here over the last several weeks to bring this wonderful event together. So I want to thank you so much for everything that you've done to bring this event together. But what is it like to be here on the day, finally?
It's just so amazing to be here, and just big thanks to all of you too, and just so many hands that have gone into this. And this is really almost the essence of why we're doing this work, is that we believe in doing this work in community and really having community supported engagement. So it's almost like this beautiful example of why we're really passionate about decriminalization, to be able to meet here together and be in community. It's so amazing.
Yeah, it really is. And I want to talk a little bit about the element of community and how important that is. I think with so much happening here in the psychedelic sector, everyone always talks about all the clinical trials that are happening with all the different companies, but I think what gets lost in a lot of that is how is psychedelic healing going to make its way into the communities, particularly communities that are oftentimes forgotten about and left behind.
Yeah.
And that's why I think events like this are so important, because you're starting the conversation here within the community. So talk to me a little bit about what the element of community means to you and what you hope to accomplish through your work with Decriminalize Nature Philadelphia.
Well, growing up in Philadelphia and still being here, still very much being part of the community here, it's as I've shared before, Philadelphia is really struggling with a lot of aspects of poverty, entrenched violent crime. Something like 20% of the individuals that live in the city make less than $13,000 a year, and that just affects all of the aspects of receiving access to mental health care, general health care,
And on top of that, we have a mostly Black city. And for us working with these tools on a community level, it's really, we also have so many people that are working with these tools already.
Right.
And so, for us as an organization, it's wanting to be able to make safe space, especially for people of color in the community, to be able to use these tools.
Right.
And to, bring it into the light. And I think that's part of the issue in the psychedelic space right now, is that without really navigating these power dynamics and having things really be in a community context. These are ancestral tools that were used in community, that this is really the model that we're wanting to access and to support for really people's safety, for having really supportive processes,
right.
and also to be able to keep people, out of prison and not be continuing the prison industrial complex as, entheogenic tools are becoming more and more mainstream. So helping protect our citizens here in the city too.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, it's like we've recognized that the system is broken. It needs to be fixed. I think this is a wonderful approach. We talked about how important community is. I want to also talk about the element of education and how important that is, because very much this event is centered around education and starting to educate folks about psychedelic assisted healing. And it's still a concept that I think is very foreign to a lot of people out there. They hear psychedelics and, I don't think they understand, exactly what psychedelic assisted healing is. So talk to me a little bit about the work you're also doing on the educational front and how that's helping to create the framework that's going to be necessary to incorporate psychedelic assisted healing into communities?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I mean, really, even right now, our conversations with City Council that we're starting to have, we're educating them about what these tools even are. So many people do not really understand what they are. There's also a lot of stigma around these tools, kind of cross-culturally, but especially in the Black community. So we actually have a lot of members that are supportive of decrim, and many of them I've just kind of seen starting to come into today, but having those conversations with Black community members about what these tools are and trying to, remove the stigma, but also simultaneously really empower people with education around what it looks like to be able to use these tools with reducing risk, having support, starting small, having those resources for being able to be supported. And this is also a simultaneous process for us that we are simultaneously, as we grow, are trying to capacitate other aspects of us as an organization to be able to support people in better ways. For how to be able to use these tools in safer ways. And I think that, again, it comes back to bringing them out of I'm thinking about the word in Spanish, the darkness, the oscuridad, to bring them out into the light, so that way we're being able to really share them in a good way. But having the conversation and sharing that information in a supportive way.
Absolutely.
For information on other events like Soul Psychadelphia, visit thesporegroup.com.